Hello everyone, welcome back to the lore of Mabinogi. Today we'll be diving into the second generation of the game. As we continue our journey through the world of Aaron, I want to remind everyone that this series is told from the perspective of a human militian. We're also following the order of the Korean release schedule, so there will be areas and characters I will not mention as they are not technically present yet in the story. I will also do my best to pronounce everything as accurately as possible and provide visual aid on what Gaelic words I am saying. With that out of the way, I'm your local lore geek WoW, and let's proceed with Chapter 1, Generation 2, Paladins. Several days have passed since you freed the goddess Morgan from her petrified prison and slayed Glass Goblin. Kihill's trickery left a foul taste in your mouth, and now an invasion of the Fomorians is looming on the horizon. Over these last few days, you've informed Tarlak of Mari's fate and spent time training your skills preparing for the conflicts to come. One night, Morgan appears to you in your dreams, now bathed in light instead of the cold prison you first saw her in. She tells you to pursue the path of a Knight of Light, and that you should go to Emain Maha, the birthplace of the Knights of Light, to start your journey. That morning, you set out for Emain Maha. To get there, you have to head west from Dumbarton following the winding cliffside road of Osna Sail that overlooks the ancient forest of Fjord. Descending from the mountain road and rounding the bend, you'll come upon the regal city of Emain Maha. Emain Maha sits on the northern edge of Lake Sen, with Coil Forest to its north. Across the lake and through the trees, Sidmag Prairie can be spotted sprawling in the distance. Similar to Dumbarton, the city is abuzz with activity, and bards can be found playing music and singing tales of heroes and villains around every corner. From asking around town about the Knights of Light, you learn about the Paladins, an order of warriors that are faithful to Morgan and protect the city. You quickly learn that the Paladins' training ground lies north of the city towards the entrance of Coil Forest. Arriving at the training grounds, you're met by Craig, the leader of the Paladins. You quickly inform him, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, that you want to become a Paladin. Craig looks you over, and while he's humored by your excitement, he cannot permit just anyone to start Paladin training. He tells you have to swear your allegiance to the Lord of Emain Maha before you can start your training. So back to the city you go, and to the castle. As you approach the entrance, the captain of the guard will inquire your purpose. After stating that you're seeking to become a paladin, he'll motion you to proceed. You soon find yourself in the throne room, and are greeted by the sight of a handsome, yet expressionless, Lord Rian, and a woman wearing the ceremonial robes of a grand priest with a calm but confident gaze. The woman, named Ezra's, speaks first. She is actually familiar with you already, Militian. She has heard of your exploits, probably from Evan and Duncan, and thus the Lord has already agreed to give you a recommendation to begin your paladin training. She sends you off without a single word from Lord Rian. Returning to Crag, he accepts you among the rates of the trainee paladins and gives you your first training mission, clearing out the kobold miners within Bari mines. Your training mission through Barry is quick and simple. You easily find the Fomorian miners taking ore from the lower levels and see to their removal. This mission becomes a daily occurrence as you and the other trainees are tasked with driving out the Fomorian miners. After a few days, you're caught in a conversation with two other trainees. One of them mentions that there are rumors that the Lord is interested in the Golden Bari mines and is using the Paladins to secure it. I can kind of see that. Before the conversation can move further, however, Crag intervenes and shoos you back to training, quietly commenting to himself that it's not his place to question the orders of Ezra's or Lord Rian. A few days later, you're given a new mission by Crag. You'll note that he seems nervous, but soon he clears his throat and informs the trainees that they will all be tasked with subduing hellhounds within Math Dungeon. He explains that there are reports that hellhounds are disguising themselves as humans to trick and attack travelers, and that you and the other trainees will be assisting with hunting them down. So you set off for Math Dungeon with the other trainees. While exploring its depths, your group soon come upon a Fomorian girl. When she sees the group, she flees, and your group gives chase. She is soon cornered, and she pleads that she doesn't want to fight and to just let her go. Another trainee points out that the reports were right. The Fomors were disguising themselves as humans to trick people. The trainees attack, and the Fomorian girl soon falls from her injuries, not once fighting back.
Triestella!
A voice calls out from behind the group, and when you turn around, you're shocked by what you see. You see Ruri, the swordsman of the three missing warriors. Tarlek and Mari's friend. The strong swordsman that should be dead. But how? How is he here? Unbeknownst to you, Ruri had awakened in the depths of Math's dungeon. When he awoke, he found himself being cared for by Triona. Triona informs Ruri that someone called Morgan had brought him to that location, and that he has been unconscious for many years. She even reveals that Morgant had cast a spell to anchor Ruri's consciousness to his body, to ensure that he survived his injuries. Ruri surveys her surroundings, noting he's somewhere within a dungeon, and notes that Triona is a Fomorian. As the days go on, Ruri refuses to eat anything that Triona tries to give him, expressing that humans and Fomorians are enemies, and that Fomorians are the reasons for his friends' deaths. He tells Triona to leave him alone, which saddens her. She expresses that no one accepts her, that she's not welcome among humans or Fomorians. She was hopeful Ruri would understand her, and not hate her like everyone else. The next day, Morgant returns, and to Ruri's disbelief, Morgant is the Dark Lord that struck him down along with his friends. The same Dark Lord that you fought, and thought that he was oddly easy to beat. Ruri tries to attack Morgant, but in his weak state he is easily shoved away. After Morgant gets Ruri to simmer down, he explains to the redhead that he was spared because he was unique. Ruri's willingness to sacrifice himself to save Mari, and his decision to become a warrior instead of a lord, was admirable in Morgant's eyes, and worthy of being saved. Upon hearing this, Ruri is taken aback that Morgant is aware of his past. Ruri is Lord Rian's older brother. Ruri was meant to become the Lord of Emain Maha, but he left the city to train to become a warrior, leaving his brother as the only heir to the Lord's seat. Not long after Ruri and his friends went missing, Ruri's father had died, resulting in Rian becoming the Lord of Emain Maha. Morgant explains to Ruri that his father didn't die of old age or illness, but was murdered by the Prime Minister Ezraz with the aid of a druid. Ezraz now manipulates Rian as a puppet to control Emain Maha for her own purposes. Upon hearing these statements, Ruri vehemently denies them, only knowing a kind and supportive Ezraz from his youth. He lashes out at Morgan again, but is pushed away once more. Morgan then cautions Ruri to not try to escape, as he cannot ensure the redhead's survival, and leaves Ruri to recover from his physical injuries and wounded ego. After some reflection, Ruri, burdened by grief and concern over his brother's safety, gets to his feet and leaves the room to find a means of leaving the dungeon. Triona tries to persuade him to stay, but he doesn't listen, so she tails after him. The two wander the dungeon halls for some time, until Ruri finally tells Triona to just leave him alone, reaffirming his stance that humans and Fomorians can never be friends. Triona, saddened, parts ways from Ruri, only to run into you and the other Paladin trainees. This brings us back to you seeing Ruri standing before you. The other trainees are shocked by Ruri's appearance, and one of them panics that the Fomorians have a doppelganger of their lord. Ruri tries to correct the group, but the trainees are quick to attack. Although Ruri is injured and barehanded, he still bests the group, showing how much stronger and skilled he is in combat than the trainees. He gives everyone a chance to retreat and let bygones be bygones. But then Lord Rian, Ezraz, and Craig all arrive. Ruri, seeing his brother, calls out to him, but Ezraz orders the other paladins and the trainees to remember their oaths and to slay the doppelganger. But Ruri knocks him away, trying to get Rian and Ezraz to recognize him. During the commotion, Ezraz takes Triona hostage, threatening to kill the injured girl if Ruri doesn't surrender. This act alarms Ruri, and he pleads for Triona to be spared, stating that she is innocent and harmless. He quickly surrenders, willing to die to ensure Triona is spared, but Ezraz, to your shock, still casts magic at the Fomorian girl, knocking her to the ground in a heap. Ruri isn't shocked by the attack, and when Ezraz commands the paladins again to strike down the supposed Fomorian, it is Morgant that now appears to defend Ruri and Triona. With a single strike, the Dark Lord, Morgant, strikes down all the paladins. He scolds Ruri for leaving the safety of the deeper levels, But then he offers to grant Ruri the power to get retribution upon those who have wronged him. Ezra demands the Paladins and trainees to, in the Lord's name, to slay the Fomorians. But before anyone can strike, Morgaunt teleports himself, Ruri, and Triana elsewhere, leaving everyone in stunned silence, and you in disbelief at everything you just witnessed, and starting to doubt your choices in training to become a Paladin of Emain Maha. The next day, you inform Crag you're leaving the Paladins. He's disappointed that you're quitting so soon, but he acknowledges that you at least gave things a consideration before acting rashly. While he assumes you're leaving because you were rattled by the Fomorians making such convincing disguises, in truth, you're conflicted by seeing Ruri in the flesh. You've seen him so many times in Tarlak's memories. Granted, he's a little older, but it was him. It was Ruri. With the Dark Lord of all people. Maybe the Dark Lord is scheming something with Keyhole, but why would Ruri be with them? Surely this can't all be a trick. Unsure of what to think or do, you wander around Emain Maha, pondering over your thoughts. As you near the town square, your thoughts are interrupted by the sound of a bard regaling the tales of the famous Knight of Light, Lug Labada. As you listen to the bard's song, you consider that maybe paladin training wasn't what Morgaunt meant by pursuing the path of the Knight of Light, but maybe it was to follow the path of the legendary knight of the same name. When the bard's song concludes, you approach him to ask him more about the legendary Knight of Light. The bard's name is Nele, and he happily shares his knowledge with you. The Knight of Light, Lug Labda, was a hero among heroes. During the Second Battle of Magtarin against the Fomorians, the same war that the Druid Moras was also known as a hero for, Lug led the allied forces against the Fomorians alongside King Nawada. He was a masterful tactician and used his strategic wit to maintain the upper hand on the battlefield, despite the allied forces being much smaller than the Fomorians. Even when Jabcho brought moon rocks crashing down upon the battlefield, Lug never faltered and fought on. In the climax of the battle, it was Lug who faced the Fomorian King Balor on the battlefield, and overcame the formidable foe. The defeat of the Fomorian King sent the Fomorians fleeing, and the battle won. Lug then succeeded King Nawada in the aftermath of the war and put all of his efforts into the reconstruction of the kingdom. Then, he vanished without a trace. Lug's impact on the kingdom can still be felt today, with many knightly orders, such as the Paladins of Emain Maha, pulling some inspiration from Lug in their creeds. As you think of how to proceed, Neely suggests learning more about another great paladin that is a local hero. This paladin's name is Redir, and he was the greatest knight in all of Emain Maha. He was strong and well respected, and many of the current paladins looked up to Redir as a knight to aspire to. Some were even mentored by him. Redir heroically died in battle during the tragedy of Emain Maha, but his sacrifice brought the conflict to an end. Nele states that if you want to learn more about Lug or Redir, he recommends you find the traveling merchant Price, as he was close friends with Redir back in the day. Well, it seems we have a new lead to follow, finding Price. Finding him, though, is a bit troublesome. He's a traveling merchant, so he's someplace new every day. As you search around for him, you will finally get to venture into Sinmag Prairie. Sinmag Prairie is a massive grassland that has been ravaged by several wars. Craters mar the field from where explosions ignited and moon rocks crashed. What few structures still stand are decrepit walls and shells of homes. Unnamed graves of countless soldiers dot the landscape, creating a grim reality juxtaposed to the joyful bird songs that whistle across the grassland. Eventually, you find the traveling merchant Price. At first glance, he seems a bit raggedy to be a merchant. However, he quickly proves to be very knowledgeable and witty. He's actually heard a lot about you already, Militian, and that he was surprised to hear that you were interested in learning more about Redir. Price finds it encouraging that others remember his friend as a hero, but in truth he states that Redir doesn't live up to the Knight of Light title. Redir had died a miserable death at the hands of the Dark Lord during the tragedy of Emain Maha. He advises you that if you want to chase after the dream of becoming a Knight of Light, you should follow Lug's example. Lug was an ordinary man that rose to greatness. He was unstoppable on the battlefield and was capable of taking down gods. Lug was a true hero, and not just a fable overbloated by recounts from storytellers. Price then states that he needs to resume his investigation and bids you farewell. Hold up, investigation? I thought he was a merchant. Hey, wait, get back here! Hey! Meanwhile, Ruri and Morgant are tending to Trina's injuries in the depths of one of the dungeons. Morgant brings up that Ruri once wanted to become a paladin, causing Ruri to recall a conversation he had with Mari about why he quit paladin training. He felt like he wasn't becoming a better warrior with their training, and wanted to venture out of Maha to grow. The conversation then shifts to views of justice from the human and Fomorian standpoints. Ruri states that both sides are spewing the same jargon, and then he questions if Morgant was hopeful that he would join the Fomorians because he wasn't happy with the humans' form of justice after what transpired in Math Dungeon. Morgant deflects this question and points out to Ruri that he isn't a Fomorian, but a human of a similar vein as the Redhead. He states that he wants to bring down the irrationalities of the world, and that goal has no sides. Wanting to learn more about Red Deer, you return to Crag, who is surprised to see you. At first, he thinks you're back to try to rejoin the Paladins, but when you tell him that you want to learn more about Red Deer, his mood turns sour. Crag explains that Red Deer was the leader of the Paladins before him, and during the tragedy of Emain Maha, he fell victim to the vileness and cowardice of the Fomorians. Red Deer clashed with the Dark Lord, but he did not fall in battle, and that he is gone for other reasons. And that having you question his swordsmanship puts a negative spotlight on the skills of the Paladins who trained under Red Deer, such as Crag himself. Crag then snaps that your inquiries are only a means to justify your own cowardice for leaving the Paladins, that you are using rumors to undermine and slander the Order to make yourself feel better. He states that you make him sick, and that you should leave before you say anything else that can land you in boiling water. Okay, whoa. We hit a nerve, let's retreat. How about we just get that good old friend of Red Deer to pause whatever he's investigating to tell us? Yeah, that's probably a safer bet. Let's go find him again. Once you find Price again, he's surprised to hear that Crag claims Red Deer was a superior swordsman to the Dark Lord. He states that the Paladins were formed to combat against the Dark Knights, such as the Dark Lord Morgant, and that the two opposing factions have clashed for generations. Price then states that if you want to become a Knight of Light, you should find your own path to follow, not follow in the footsteps of someone else, hero or not. He then writes down the name of a book and gives it to you, recommending you give it a read. Well, we know who to talk to when looking for books. Visiting your friend Arya, she'll fetch you the book Food for the Soul of Good Deeds. While you wait for the recommended book's arrival, you spot a few other books that might bear information relevant to your search on how to become a Knight of Light. You pick those up to read at a later time, and soon Arya gives you the initial book you were after. Food for the Soul of Good Deeds is a story about two friends from Emain Maha that live in different economic standings. When the poorer friend's family went through hard times, the richer friend gave her friend golden eggs from her family's chicken to sell. Years later, after Fomorians ravaged the city, the rich family is now poor and the poor family grew in wealth. With the tables now turned, the once poor friend returns the act of kindness her family was shown years ago, and aids her friend's family to rise back up out of poverty. It's a nice story about kindness and helping others in need. You realize Price wanted you to read this book because sometimes the best thing to do is simply help others out of the goodness of your heart. Good deeds can sometimes lead you down unexpected paths, so perhaps this is the means of finding a path forward in your quest. So you return to Emain Maha, where Morgan clearly wants you to be, and start trying to help out around town. Eventually, one of the twin florists, Delin, asks if you could play matchmaker. You agree and help Galvin, the local general storekeeper, express his feelings to Delin in a wholesome back and forth of these two lovebirds that are just too bashful just to walk the few meters just to say hi to one another. After you help the two of them out, Delin suggests you try helping out the soldiers if you want to do more good deeds around town. Seeing how Crag reacted to your presence last time, maybe it's best to avoid the Paladin training area. But maybe the Captain of the Guard might humor your offer. The Captain of the Guard can be found outside the castle. The sharp-featured knight introduces himself as Aiden. He states there isn't anything you can help the soldiers with in town, but he does take up your offer and asks if you would accompany him to Dumbarton. He wishes to speak to a former knight about returning to Emain Maha. He informs you the knight in question is Aranwin, the combat instructor that you've seen a few times at the Dumbarton school. You agree to accompany him, and when the pair of you arrive at Dumbarton school, you're immediately stonewalled. Aranwin states that she will never return to the Paladins, despite Aiden trying to convince her that past events were not her fault. He comments that if she fully turns her back on the Paladins now, then she is no better than Radir. Aranwin refutes, stating she isn't worthy to return to Emain Maha. She takes notice to your confused expression, and explains that she was once Radir's lover, that on the night of the tragedy of Emain Maha, she traded shifts with another Paladin and spent the night in Garage Hills with Radir. When they saw the distant glow of the fires, they rushed back to the city to see that most of the damage has already been done. The Paladin she changed shifts with was killed, and Radir was blamed for everything that happened. Before Radir could be held responsible for everything, he fled the city and vanished. Aranwin then tells Aiden to leave, that nothing he says will change her stance on the matter. He reluctantly leaves, but informs her that if she ever wishes to return to Emain Maha, she will always be welcomed back with open arms. That night, after accompanying Aiden back to Emain Maha, you have a dream of the goddess. She asks you how your journey is going and informs you that Keyhole and Morgan's powers are growing. She tells you not to be frustrated, as to become a Knight of Light you must face hardships, and she assures you that you will find a way forward. You start looking through some of the books you picked up at the bookstore, and one in particular, Lug, the hero of Magturin, sticks out to you. Although the information within it is similar to what the bard nearly told you, but you take notice to a line stating that Lug's shining armor was made with the blessing of spirits. You don't know much about spirits, but you have a hunch that Tarlak may know something. So you venture back north to meet with Tarlak. And for some reason while you're up here, you don't mention that you saw Ruri at all to Tarlak? Why, I don't know. This is a plot hole I will always hate. But back to the main topic. When you explain to Tarlak that Morgan wants you to pursue the path of a Knight of Light, he laughs at the idea that you had automatically assumed that simply training would make you a Knight of Light. After his fit of snickering ends, he'll explain that when Lug became a Knight of Light, he needed the blessing of 3 powers: divine, human, and spirit. Since Morgan tasked you with pursuing this path, you already have a divine blessing, meaning you just need a blessing from spirits and from humans. The blessing will take form of a special armor that will be bound to its owner, and it will contain an abundance of divine power. He'll direct you to Seo Island, where a water spirit called Air resides. Seo Island can only be accessed via the Moon Gates, as the island was isolated away from civilization to keep many golems contained. When you get to the island, a goblin named Muro welcomes you and warns you that the golems have been very active lately, and to be careful where you walk. Hold up. Another goblin that's friendly? When you ask Muro if he knows Goro, he'll say that he, Goro, and 2 other goblins called Piro and Tiro are all siblings, and they were all raised by their father, Price. Huh, no wonder this is one of the locations Price can be found at a regular basis. Taking heed to Muro's warning, you set off to find the water spirit. It doesn't take you long to find a stairway leading into a chamber with a pool of water. Above the pool is a beautiful water spirit called Ere. She quickly recognizes why you're there and states that you're not yet worthy to don the armor. She comments that you remind her of Lug in some ways, but you are uniquely your own person. She then states that you must prove your worthiness to her, that paladins use their powers to safeguard the happiness of others, and a true paladin would never turn down the request from a spirit. She states that she wants to become more attractive, as people jeer and laugh at her, and even throw stones at her when they see her. She asks if you could find out what people view as attractive or ideal, then return to her with the opinions so that she can then determine how to alter her appearance so that no one would ever throw stones at her again. This request begins a fun jaunt around Ulad, visiting Triestella, Dumbarton, Bangor, and Emain Maha to get various residents' opinions on the ideal appearance for someone they would be attracted to. Some of the results are obvious, others are a bit surprising. Once you've collected several ideal appearances for Air, you return to her. As she looks over the descriptions, Neely appears, having overheard that you were asking around town about people's ideals. He had suspected it was Air who put you up to the task, and reveals that he has deep feelings for her, and that he was the fool that threw a stone at her originally out of confusion. Oh. Air and Neely have a deep conversation, and Neely even performs a song for Air expressing his feelings. Once that is all over, Air fulfills her end of the exchange. She gives you a letter to take to the blacksmith in Bangor. You head to Bangor where the blacksmith Edurn works with the assistance of his granddaughter Elaine. Unlike Fergus, they're actually good blacksmiths. After reading the letter, Edurn forges you an armor to take back to Air, fulfilling the blessing of the human requirement. Air then blesses the armor and instructs you to take it to CR Dungeon, where other spirits will test you to see if you are worthy to become a true paladin. Upon entering the dungeon, you find yourself no longer in your own body, but that of an animal. The spirits tell you to be one with nature and complete the trial. When you clear the trial, the Spirit of Light will fuse with you and state that whenever you need aid, you can call upon it. Oh, wait, does that mean we're a proper paladin now? Wow, that was easy! As you leave CR, you find Price. You inform him that you've become a true paladin, but he seems confused, amazed, and irritated all in one emotion. He states that he never heard of such a thing before, but now isn't the time to contemplate over such feats. Price needs your help. He's been investigating the shady dealings around Emain Maha's prime minister, which, after seeing how she acted with Triona and Ruri in math, that's not hard to imagine. Price shows you a collection of letters that Ezra has received over the years. They are magically obscured, but they bear the names of many correspondents that have either vanished or died. Price hopes you might know someone who can help undo the magic and decipher them. He also shows you a vial of a mysterious liquid. He hopes you know someone you can trust that can investigate its contents. Thankfully, you know just the two people. Going to Triestella with Price, you introduce him to Lazar and Dillis, the village healer. The two women are good friends and both gladly aid you. Lazar removes the spells from the letters, revealing a series of plots that Ezra's and her correspondents conspired together to set up Radir and for the tragedy of Emain Maha, and creating a means of controlling subordinates to ensure plans go as Ezra's desires. As for the potion, Dillis immediately identifies it as a marionette potion. Dillis expressed a disgust seeing the potion and explains that marionette potions are made from extracting a substance from fulmore squirrels and combining it with some magic and medicinal herbs. The effects of the potion would only work on someone who has lost consciousness, but once applied, the victim would be nothing more than a puppet that is controlled by the spellcaster. Dillis even comments that she was almost tricked into drinking such a potion back in Emain Maha. And if it wasn't for Lazar intervening, Dillis might not have made it home to Triestella. Well then, I guess we found out what that means of controlling subordinates is. Yikes. Upon hearing this, Price will comment that a colleague of his was acting weird before he disappeared, and fears Ezra's is using the potion to control the minds of residents and paladins in Emain Maha. He'll then ask if you know anyone who can translate a Fomorian book. Yep, we certainly do. After the book is translated, it is revealed to be the Book of Tabartis. Tabartis was an ancient golem that was the gatekeeper of wisdom. Price realizes that the recent golem activity on CO Island might be involved with this. With all this evidence now gathered, Price tells you to go see James, a priest currently at the Cathedral of Limerick in Emain Maha, and to give him all the evidence the two of you have collected. This is probably the best time for me to address the Church of Limerick. So far in your adventures, you've only seen the churches and priests for Limerick, but who is Limerick? Limerick is one of the Trinity deities that watch over Erin under the command of the creator deity, Atan Simony. We actually overheard Morgan and Keyhole discussing their interpretations of Atan's will at the end of G1. Limerick is known as the god of love. The other two trinities are Geomedirarch, the god of peace, and Humerarch, the god of freedom. In Ulad, or specifically the Aliat Kingdom, which you've been exploring thus far, the main faith present is Limerarchs. The others are around, but we won't see them for a while, so we won't go into detail about them just yet until they appear in the story. As for other deities like Morgan and Keyhole, the churches acknowledge they, along with many other gods, exist. The Church of Limerick, for example, also worships Morgan to an extent, as she is the goddess of war and vengeance that stands by humanity's side in times of conflict. Meanwhile, Keyhole, one of the Fomorian gods, is seen as a villain to the church, as he strives for the destruction of humanity. When you arrive at the cathedral, you are met by James. He has a warm and welcoming air about him, but once you mention what you and Price have found, you discover that he's actually very cunning. He informs you that he was sent to Emain Maha by the church to investigate Ezra's tyranny, as the church has suspected Ezra's shady behavior for many years, but couldn't get proof of it until now. Thanks to Price's snooping and your resourcefulness, the church can now act against Ezra's. James calls for Craig, trusting that the Paladin wants what is best for Emain Maha and wants his aid in apprehending Ezra's without conflict. When Craig arrives, James quickly informs him of the situation. Ezra's has been using the marionette potion to control Lord Rian, then using his authority to command the Paladins to gather gold to construct Tabartis, all the while creating more marionette potions to control other residents of the city, especially if they start interfering with her plot. After listening to James' explanation, Craig asks you to go to the castle and distract Ezra's, while James gets a healer into the castle to aid Lord Rian and get him away from Ezra's. Craig unfortunately cannot move against Ezra's until he knows the Lord is safe. You head to Emain Maha Castle, quickly finding Ezra's in the throne room. When she sees you, she's glad she gets a moment to speak to you in private. She informs you that she knows you've been investigating her, but what has piqued her interest is the wandering merchant that you've been helping. She starts to ask for your cooperation, and insisting in locating the merchant, threatening to use force if needed, but before she can continue, Price arrives. Upon seeing Price, Ezra confirms her suspicions on his identity, revealing that Price is actually Redir, the ex-Paladin. She always doubted that he had died after he fled the city. However, her taunts are cut short when Price informs her that her schemes have been exposed and she'll be arrested for her crimes. Ezra scoffs, commenting that she's only ever protected the city, and that Redir was the kidnapper that caused the tragedy of Emain Maha. Wait, what? Kidnapping? We're missing something here. Price, or Redir, demands to know where Lord Rian is. Ezra only tells him that Rian is no longer in Emain Maha before she teleports away. Wait, we just let her teleport? No, I hate teleporting. Thankfully, due to the evidence Redir has gathered, he has a strong hunch on where Ezra has fled to, and leads you to Buried Dungeon, the place where all the gold Ezra has been gathering is being kept. Racing through the depths of Bari, you and Redir soon find Ezra's. When Redir asks for where Lord Rian is again, the Prime Minister responds by stating that she has been the Lord of Emain Maha for a long time, and soon she will rule over all of Erin. Okay, wow. From a city to the entire world, I think you missed a few steps there, lady. She then summons Tabartis, revealing a massive gold-infused golem and sets it upon you and Redir. Okay, so this is like a two-phase fight. This first one, you can't do any damage to it. So don't do something dumb like me and test out certain skills to see if you can damage the boss, because if the boss dies when it's not supposed to die, you break the game. So yeah, this was funny. Anyway, despite yours and Redir's best efforts, the golem's brute strength is too much. Redir gets injured, and just before the golem crushes him, you intervene and hold back the weight of the gold-infused golem. Redir yells at you to flee, but as if there was ever time to become a Knight of Light, it's now. Light engulfs you, and you find yourself clad in shining armor and empowered by a strength strong enough to shove away the golem's foot. Shocking Ezra's and Radir. You've awoken as a Knight of Light. Ezra starts to panic and demands Tabartus to kill you, but this time the tables have turned. After defeating Tabartus, Ezra is horrified that you have become a real Knight of Light.
빛의 전사, 그리고 타바르타스.
The voice of Morgant echoes around the chamber, and soon he appears, surveying the scene. He moves over to the fallen golem, commenting that the ancient golem's workmanship leaves much to be desired, before striking the gold-infused stone. From the fissure, Lord Rian's body tumbles out to your shock. Morgant explains that the golem drew its energy from a sacrifice, but before he can elaborate, another voice echoes out. Ruri appears from the darkness and rushes to his brother, trying to wake him. He demands to know who killed his brother, and without missing a beat, Ezra deflects all the blame to you. Ruri's ear swiftly moves to you, as Morgant mutters his amazement that you have awakened as a Knight of Light so quickly. As the shining visage of the Knight of Light vanishes, Ruri's hatred boils into a rage as he recognizes you from Math Dungeon. He demands to know what Triona did to deserve her injuries, and why Rian had to be killed by your hands. You're caught off guard by his accusations, and are lost for words. You fumble to try to explain yourself, but Ruri starts demanding you bring his brother back. Then, before anything else can be said, Tabartus explodes into dust, claiming Rian's body along with it. This leaves Ruri distraught and cursing at Morgant for not helping him after all that he has been through. Morgant then places a hand on Ruri's shoulder, saying that he will help Ruri turn his wrath into power that will give him the retribution he deserves. Ruri then looks back at you, saying he'll never forget your name, before he willingly leaves with Morgant, leaving everyone in shock. And, oh dear, you think we should probably have told Tarlok about this now, Militian? Radir tries to comfort you, saying that Rian had likely died long before he was sacrificed to the golem. Ezra scoffs and informs everyone that Rian had died during the tragedy of Maha, after Radir's blade was knocked from his hands by Morgant and impaled the young lord in the leg. Rian died later that night, but Ezra's never told anyone about it. Instead, she used the marionette potion to control his corpse all these years. Thus, she was the true lord of Emain Maha all this time. Oh, enough of this monologue. Shut her up already. Wait. Are we not taking her back to face any kind of persecution? We're not even taking the body back? Okay. I'm pretty sure we just committed some kind of war crime by killing the Prime Minister and leaving her here, but okay then, game. Morgant then appears and tells you congratulations on awakening as a Knight of Light, then warns you to beware of the Dark Knights. Cool. And that's all, folks. That's all for G2. Yeah, I know. This was very abrupt. But that's it. So with this generation wrapped up abruptly, I'm going to take this time to cover a few topics that were skimmed over due to the generation being streamlined and updated over the years. The tragedy of Emain Maha. This event was actually caused by Ezra setting up Radir and several other paladins to raid Math Dungeon and find an infant Triona in its depths. Radir, not realizing Triona was a Fomorian, took the infant back to the safety of Emain Maha. Not long after that, Morgant attacked the city while Radir and Arwen were away. In a cutscene that is still viewable in the library crystal balls, Radir returned to the city and catches up to the Paladins and Lord Rian in Coil Dungeon as they face Morgant. Morgant reveals that the infant that Radir took was his daughter, and Radir realizes that the attack was technically his fault. He is not aware he was set up. And in the fight that followed, Radir's sword is knocked from his head and impales Lord Rian's leg. Ezra then appears with the infant Triona and returns her to Morgant, resulting in the Fomorians ceasing their attack and vanishing into the dungeon. However, Ezra then turns on Radir and orders for his arrest. He was to be held responsible for the attack and injuring Lord Rian, and ultimately, he was going to be executed. Thankfully, Radir's former subordinates freed him and he fled the city, becoming the traveling merchant known as Price. As for what happens to Emain Maha now that both their lord and prime minister are dead, well, let's not question it. Seriously, there's no answer for that, but we can presume that Crag, Aiden, and James made sure that the city didn't fall apart off-screen. Maybe the rewrite of G3 might answer that? I will find that out very soon. But with that all the way, we can now safely say that is it for Generation 2. So special shout out to my fellow lore geeks Soll and Kethlenda for helping me out with this script and some of the fun notes that you see pop up in this video. And special thanks to my film crew, their names will all be on screen right here. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and I hope you all had a good time, and we'll see you all in Generation 3 Dark Nights.